Well, thank you for coming to our How to Read Labels lecture. Congratulations for coming to one of our most powerful and practical lectures. So this is one that we kind of do on repeat. Some of our lectures we only do seasonally, or if it's kind of a special interest topic. But this is one we repeat because we want every new patient to be able to come here, because I feel like the information that's going to be contained in tonight's lecture empowers you to be smart consumers, so that you aren't tricked by tricky marketing when you go out there, because the anatomy of a label isn't everything that you need to know about what's in the food or the product that you're consuming. So before I get started, there are a lot of new faces in the room and a lot of people that are newer to the practice. So I just want to take a minute to introduce myself. So if you've heard my story, I apologize. You probably heard it last week. But there is a reason behind why we're so passionate about what we do and why we do it, and why we stay late and do these lectures and provide those to the community. So I'm Dr. Christy Harvell, if you haven't yet figured that out. This is my practice, Health by Design. I've been in practice for 14 years. Before I moved to Jacksonville a little short of 2 years ago, I practiced in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes area for about 12 years. I got sick of freezing my butt off, and then I decided to come down here where the sun shines. And lo and behold, you guys have sick people just like we had sick people in New York who need nutritional health and chiropractic and so on. So I've been able to very quickly build my practice here and find people who are in need of our services. But my journey in the whole healthcare field came when I was young. So I started out like many of you who are probably already in this room, or any of the viewers who are online. I was a consumer of the medical industry, so I wasn't enlightened like I am now. I didn't know what I knew back then, and I just did what everybody else did, and I followed what the normal protocol was, and kind of followed, like we say now, kind of followed the herd, right? Just did what was the norm. So my journey started really in middle school and high school. I had a chronic pain syndrome. And the problem that was wrong with me led me to constantly go to different practitioners. And so I kind of got bounced around the medical field and had this test and that test done, and was poked and prodded and sent to specialist, and nothing worked. They weren't coming up with answers, but I got the, well, wait and see, or the try this, try that, take a pill, give it time, or just live with it diagnosis. Has anybody else been told that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I didn't know any better, and I started thinking, like, maybe this is all there is for me. Well, what I didn't tell you is backpedal. I was studying to become a doctor myself. So I've always been passionate about the human body and health sciences and that kind of thing. But as I continued my studies, the very field that I was studying to become a part of was failing me personally. And so it started me on this whole path of discovery, of trying to ask the question, like, where does real health actually come from? What does health even mean? And is what I'm being told as far as my own health and what's possible for me the be-all, end-all answer? And so what I discovered through that entire personal journey was that, no, that, surgeries every 2 years, pain medications around the clock, being injected with hormones, that kind of thing was not the only answer. And so as I continued my journey through education, I changed paths. I decided not to go to pre-med and not to become part of the medical industry. I decided to study alternative medicine, because it was actually through the School of Chiropractic that taught me the philosophy that I believe today wholeheartedly, that true health comes from within. So you were designed with every piece and part that you need to be an entire healthy human being. You have everything in your own capacity to heal and experience life at its fullest. And the only reason that breaks down is a couple of reasons, but one of the only reasons that breaks down is there's either something interfering with that, with the body's processes. So in our practice, we know that could be food interferences, immune issues. It could be external environmental stuff like heavy metals or chemicals. And then there's, a couple of other things that we test for. Could be that, or there could actually be deficiencies. So there could be building blocks in the body that are missing, and the body doesn't have what it needs to heal and recover. So as I started to adopt that mentality, my own health started to improve. And despite the medical odds or the advice that I was being given, I was able to heal myself. And I continue on that path today because I know that as much as I know, we can all do a little bit better. And the cumulative effort, day after day, week after week, year after year, all adds up in our favor, where we can overcome the odds that we're being told, no, you just need to live with this or deal with it, kind of a thing. So today, fast forward, after 14 years of practice and studying incessantly and going to every seminar that I can on health and nutrition and chiropractic, I don't have chronic pain anymore. I'm not on medications. I'm not on hormones. I haven't had surgery in over, I don't even know, at least 12 years. I haven't been on this stuff. My body's free of all that stuff. So why am I so passionate about sharing my sob story with all of you is because I know that there's another way. And I don't want you all to take 14 years or a lifetime to have to figure that out. So my hope is that by people learning through me and my journey and my path, that you can find the real answer and discover what true health is before you have to get tossed and turned and gone through practitioner to practitioner and poked and prodded and figure out all these tests. Because what happened to me is when they couldn't find out what was wrong with me and they couldn't find something to put a label on or a tag, they told me I was, right?
Yeah.
Right. So if we can't structurally find it, you must be depressed. And this is like, I say this every time, but does anybody in here think that I've ever been accused of being depressed? So that's when I finally was like, okay, I've had it. You're completely wrong. This is not how it's going to go down. And that led me on my discovery. And so I just don't want you guys to have to take as long as I did. So I'm super passionate about teaching anybody, but especially moms and children, that they can grow up in a world where they don't have to just follow the herd and listen and follow along. There's another way, and it's healthy and it's natural, and there's no side effects to it. Sounds good, right? Okay, good. So to kind of start us off tonight, I want to start to paint the picture about how we feel is related to what we eat. So I love this triangle because if we just put the symptom up here, so tonight's not a symptom lecture. Sometimes we do lectures on hormone imbalance or sugar imbalance or headaches or some kind of specific topic. Tonight's not a symptom lecture, but if we were talking about anything, so anybody in this room could probably say like, oh, I don't sleep as well. Oh, I don't deal with stress. Or maybe I've got some chronic pain syndrome, or mental clarity. I don't think as well or concentrate as well as I used to. These are probably all things that we can all agree, like one of us has had, like, I would say in the last day or so, in the last 24 hours, you know what I mean? So whatever the ailment is, what I know is that if you're feeling a certain way, that there's an underlying nutritional deficiency. And if there's an underlying nutritional deficiency, then I know that there's organ dysfunction, because your organs need the nutrition in order to function to optimum, right? So if you think about it, there is a reason why we eat. It's not all social, it's not all addictions, it's not all because it tastes good or whatever. You actually are eating to feed your body as fuel, right? The reason that this is on a triangle is because you can read it any way. So the worse the symptoms are, the more angry the organs are, the more nutritional deficiencies there are, and so on and so forth. And so what we're trying to do is arrest this triangle. So if you change any one arm of the triangle, it's going to change all of the rest of them. So we want to stop it somewhere along the path, okay? So that just kind of sets you up for you are what you eat. So kind of remember that a little bit. I'm going to have you guys skip the sugar quiz, but I would love you come back to that and answer it truthfully when you're at home. But basically, after you take the sugar quiz, there's 143 reasons why sugar is ruining your health. So we're going to do the label readings class right now, but I want you to come back to this and maybe even post it on your refrigerator, because most people don't know where to start with diet and nutrition. Like, okay, we talked about, do I go vegan? Should I go vegetarian? Should I go gluten-free? Should I go dairy-free? Like, whose advice do I follow? Should I do the forks over nice? Should I do Weston A. Price? There's all these conflicting fields of study, and anybody can prove that they've had success stories and people have done better. What I implore you to think about a little bit is, well, what is the commonality? So if one person can say a complete plant-based diet, for example, is awesome, and another person can say, no, you need animal fats and proteins, and both can prove that people beat chronic disease and get off of medications and do well, what's the common trend? Well, the common trend is they don't do sugar, they don't do carbohydrates, they don't do processed foods, they don't do the chemicals, the food preservatives. They eat real food off the land, right? So think about that a little bit. But you don't have to do the quiz tonight. So I'm going to launch right into the label readings class. So if you go to the first, the bigger of the two stapled packets, this is what the front page looks like. For our online audience, just so you know, anything that we go over that you can't read or follow along with tonight, we will post it on the Health by Design FL Members Only page. So if you join the Members Only page, any of that material will be uploaded. Okay, so what do those labels really mean? Is anybody in here a label reader? Are you the person that you're in the grocery store or wherever you go and you take like an hour or two just to figure out what could I know Stephanie and I were talking about that. And people are looking at you like, why are you taking so long? Or move aside, or you know, you're blocking my view kind of thing. That's good. You should be. Those labels are there for a reason. So what is on a label? There isn't a lot of standardization, believe it or not, on what goes on there, and companies use tricky marketing tactics to fool you. So that label is bright and shiny and has good colors on it and attractive font and everything, and then they're making all sorts of medical claims. So number one, this is probably in here somewhere, but I'm going to skip ahead. If your food makes a medical claim, it's probably too good to be true. Can you think of an example of that? I love that.
Yeah.
I know one. The cereals.
Yeah,
oh,
the
that
cereals
it's
say
whole grain and it fights heart disease.
Heart disease.
Heart
yes.
disease. But there's like 5 different bright colored, like little pebbles in there and marshmallows. Really?
That's criminal.
Right? But that's what you're going to see. So I'm going to make light of this and poke fun, but it's actually, I'm only this far outside of the realm of truth on some of this stuff, really. Okay, so nutrition facts. On the nutrition facts side of the label, you're going to see things listed about what's the amount of sugar, the fiber, the protein, sodium, calories, recommended daily allowances. Are you guys all familiar with that little graph that's on the side? Okay. Number 2 is health claim and propaganda. So that's what we just said. All natural. All natural could mean anything. One of the jokes that we had, because I went to chiropractic school, natural could mean like, okay, shrooms are natural. Are they good for you? No. Arsenic is natural. Is that good for your body? No. So natural just means that it has a carbon backbone and it could be anything. It doesn't mean that it's a good idea to eat it, right? Whole grains is another one which we talked. Your whole grains are now sprayed with like red and yellow and green food dye. Who cares if they're whole grain or not? A lot of first ingredient says sugar or high fructose corn syrup or wheat or something like that. That's probably something to stay away from. It might say that it has processed grains, so you're going to learn how to read whether it's actually a whole grain or not. Some of these cereals that we were talking about that make the medical claims, I forget what the percentage is. I don't know if you know this, Stephanie, but it only has to have a very low, I don't know if it's 3% of whole grains for them to put whole grain on the front of the packaging.
Yeah, it's very low.
It's
I don't
super
know what
low.
the
So the rest is all processed grains. Or if hydrogenated oils, for example, is in the first 3, stay away from it. The other thing that's on the label are things that aren't so easy to see that you actually have to sort through, look for, are certifications, like if it's USDA certified organic or non-GMO verified. And we have pictures of all this, so you can hopefully just take this right along with your shopping and start looking for this stuff. Okay? So on the food label, the next little graph there talks about what to look for on the left side and what to avoid on the right side. What to look for? Can you pronounce it? Is it a food? Is it recognizable? There's a really cute book over here. I wish I got it out ahead of time. It's called Food Rules, and it's like really simple ways to learn how to eat. Like, for example, on the pronounceable side of things, would your grandma recognize it as food? Has it always been around? Or has it been created in a laboratory and it's a new trendy something with all this chemical stuff? So can you pronounce it? That's pretty easy. You don't have to be a scientist to know that. Is it recognizable? That's on would it make grandma's checklist as real food? Does it have a short ingredient list? So you know if the lists start getting longer and longer and longer, you don't know what you're venturing into, right? And then is there a whole food in the first 3 ingredients? So we talked about that a little bit. Like if your first 3 ingredients are sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and rice syrup, why in the world do you need 3 different kinds of sweetener in the same food? When you bake something at home, do you put 3 sweeteners in it? No, but they're doing that because the combined effect of that makes it addictive. I don't know whose thing this was, but the whole like, can you eat just one kind of an idea? They're betting against you. They know you can't just eat one because they set up the chemistry in there so that you're just like
It's just like cocaine.
mounted on it.
Get addicted like sugar.
Exactly, you got it. So one of the food labels that I wanted to share with you, the picture is the non-GMO verified, and it also has the USDA organic. Those 2 really help eliminate a lot of the things that you want to avoid. So if you have the 2 of them, they're not GMO, there isn't any pesticides in it, you pretty much get the best of both worlds there. And then what to avoid on the right side of the graph? If it says high fructose corn syrup, corn solids, fructose, artificial or isolated vitamins, we're going to go into a lot more of that because I think they try to make some of these popular convenience foods seem healthy by boasting that it has calcium and vitamin B and D and all this other stuff in it. So you're going to be able to learn how to read a label and know, is that a naturally occurring vitamin or did they spray it with some kind of synthetic, something made in a laboratory? More than 100% of the recommended daily allowance. So you guys know what the recommended daily allowance is? Like there's some board of professionals out there somewhere that have decided on my behalf and your behalf exactly how much of each nutrient that your body needs at any given point in time. And so they come up with a standard. They try to standardize it, even though I'm 37 and you might be 72 and somebody might be active or inactive, male, female, in their productive cycle, whatever it might be. But we all need the same amount of all the nutrients, right? Does that make sense? I'm picking on y'all. So some of the things we're going to learn about is if it has like 1,000% of the recommended daily allowance. Sometimes I've seen like 15,000% of the recommended daily allowance. That's called mega dosing. Why in the world would you need 15,000% of the normal allowance of anything?
Right.
But we'll talk a little bit about that because those are synthetic. So if you see that, that's kind of a red flag to ask, like, how is that created or where is that nutrient coming from? Has anybody seen a vitamin label that says that it has artificial food dye in it? So if your supplements are neon blue or bright green or, I don't know. Yeah, purple. I don't know if I've seen purple yet. Or some of those. There's some gummies that are okay, but like if they're like crazy neon colors, okay, like is it more good for you or is it more neurotoxic for you? Like what? How do you weigh like what if the benefits outweigh the risks of that kind of a thing? We talked about some of the oils, if it's genetically modified, if there are preservatives in here. So some of the supplement labels, you're going to see active ingredients, and then you also need to look at the inactive ingredients. Because in our practice, we test patients for chemical sensitivities, heavy metals, and a lot of these things that are hidden on the very, very bottom in the inactive ingredients are causing people a whole heck of a lot of problems, inflammation, and interfering with their ability to heal. Natural flavoring sounds like it would be good, right? It could mean anything. Who knows what in the world that means? So that doesn't even necessarily mean good, and that's usually chemicals. MSG, and there's lots of ways that they're hiding the MSG. It doesn't always just say MSG or monosodium glutamate. So some of this stuff I'm not always a proponent of Dr. Google, but a lot of these things you can actually go and say, like, other names for MSG, other names for sugar, other names for aspartame, because the tricky marketing that we talked about on the first paragraph in here, once we become informed and knowledgeable, the marketing campaign knows to try to take the next step and overcome that, and now they'll call it something else so that you think, oh, they took that out of there, or this is now a safe product. So that's why you have to be really informed and stay on top of this stuff, because the same old products that you've always known and used and restocked your pantry with and have trusted, all of a sudden it can become less expensive for them to now outsource or get their ingredients somewhere else, or maybe use a synthetic vitamin or supplement in place of a natural one, and that product that you've always trusted, all of a sudden you turn it over and you're like, whoa, when did it have to start having that in it? So you still have to stay current even with the stuff that you trust. Light, low fat, or low calorie, those are all healthy, right? Trick questions. You guys are smart. I love this audience. So if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And so just know this. How do you get a low fat, low calorie product to taste good?
Usually a lot of salt or sugar.
Salt and sugar.
Or something, or a chemical. Yeah. So beware. If they're boasting low fat, low calorie, all that kind of stuff. Like, I remember the Snack Walls. Does anyone remember the Snack Walls campaign?
Oh my God.
And that was like the healthy dessert. And I was like, it's still a dessert. Like, you can't sugarcoat the fact that it's still a dessert. And people were like scarfing it up because marketing campaigns told us that it was okay. Was that the low fat thing? Was that their deal? Yeah, it was low fat. So now we know better. But unfortunately, in our field, day in and day out, and Stephanie will tell you the same thing, is we have people that still remember the old tricky, I keep saying trickety. I think I just made a new word because I said it like 3 times, so it exists now. The old trickety campaigns that low-fat diets were healthy for you. So what happens is we see these trends, and then after that becomes the norm and enough people do it, then we start to see the pendulum swing the other side, and it's only a decade or so later, after enough people have followed along, that we understand what the actual health ramifications are. And so it's only now that we're seeing the people that followed all the low-fat dieting, and maybe still half believe it and are like, I think I gotta avoid fats, are the hormone imbalance people and having issues with cholesterol and all these other things. So be careful. And then no added sugar. That would be good, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Could be good. How are you going to know if that's good? So the reason I put that on there is because no added sugar could be good, but you're only going to know that if you take that into consideration with everything else, and you look at the ingredients list, and you look at the inactive ingredients and all that other stuff, because they might put that on the front of the package in a big, what are those things called, like Starburst and neon yellow, like, wow, look, Mom, you're making a good choice on behalf of your children, but then you turn over the thing and it's got all this other crud in it, right? Is anybody depressed yet?
What can we eat?
Nothing! Water. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so I'm going to give my disclaimer now. Usually the first half of the lecture is like, I'm going to bring all the truth on you, and you're going to feel maybe a little bit squashed or like ticked off, and that's okay, because I think sometimes you've got to get to a point where it's maddening to know that this is what's out there and we've all fallen for or believe in, to then take action or to make a difference or to seek change, you know. But what I promise you is we're going to paint the picture and then we're going to give the solution. So the good news is yet to come. So stick with me. Okay, so this is something that you guys could totally take to the grocery store with you. This is an example at the very bottom, the red, green, and red circles. These are examples of produce labels. So did you guys know that depending on how many digits the number has or what the number starts with, you can tell if it's actually organic or conventional or if it's genetically modified? I know, a lot of people don't know that. So just go and look at this number. So do you know what I'm talking about? That little sticker doesn't have a barcode. It's like the one that's annoying. Like you can't let it go down your garbage disposal because it'll all collect and then you clog the thing. And it'll overflow on
You mean a little sticker
Thanksgiving.
they put on fruit?
That happened.
little sticker.
Yeah,
you
the
see.
little sticker. So this little white thing that's on each of the circles, that's what it looks like. So the organic, if it's a 5-digit code that starts with the number 9, that's organic. So that's safe. The second one, if it's a 4-digit code that starts with a 4, that means it's conventional. So warning, these are the super abundantly sized, perfectly shaped, wax coated, shiny, no flaws in the skin. Like, this is going to trick you every single time because this one looks a lot prettier than the one that starts with the number 9. Did you notice that some of the stores like Native Sun or some of our local organic produce stores, they sell the apples and they call them like mini apples or something? That's not a mini apple. It's really, if you had a tree and you grew apples and you didn't give it any pesticides or treat it with any garbage, that's what the apple would look like. Not this like pumpkin-sized apple. That's not natural, right? So conventional will trick you on appearance every single time.
That's cool because I never knew that.
And then the last one, if it's a 5-digit code that starts with the number 8, beware. Genetically modified, has not been tested for human consumption or human safety. So remember I talked about the 10-year swing, they introduce something, they claim it's safe, they tell everybody, oh, don't worry, it's no big deal. And then we have to wait like a decade or two after to understand what the issues are or what new health conditions or labels we need to create as a result of that. Number 8. Okay, flip the page. Some of the most misleading claims, there's a lot of these. Light food, we talked about that. If it's light, then they usually have to replace it with something to add the flavor back in. Ooh, multigrain. Multigrain sounds like it's good for you, right?
Yeah, sure.
I love these. You're right, it does sound good. They put it on there on purpose to make it sound like it's good. And some of them are good, but without taking everything that we're teaching you into consideration, you can't fall for the flashy marketing on the front of the package. You got to turn it over and read the label. So it just means that there's more than one type of grain in the product. Multigrain means more than one. So it could be rice and potato, which both turn into sugar, right?
Wow.
I'm so mad. It's fun. Natural, we talked about examples of that. Organic, we like the word organic, but be careful. Did I put the organic labels in here for you guys later?
Yeah.
So the organic basically can mean that it's only a small percentage of organic in it. And so you need to look for 100% organic. So if it just says organic, it means that there are organic products in the product, but it's not necessarily all organic. So the label that you need to see is the one on front, the USDA organic. And that's all organic. And then there's different versions of organic where it could only have like 50% organic or 80% organic. So you need to look for that label. We talked about no added sugar. So that could just mean that it has unhealthy sugar substitutes. Something that I think a lot of people are trying to do, like the Coke Zeros and the diet sodas and the sugar-free stuff, is because they're afraid of gaining weight. This is one of those trends where we did the sugar-free thing, and now it's falling out, where we're starting to understand what the results as far as our overall health is, and they're realizing that the sugar-free stuff actually is just as likely or more to cause diabetes. So the very thing that we were trying to avoid in the first place, we're seeing a worsening effect or an increased incidence of that. The other thing with sugar substitutes is they're very neurotoxic. So they fry your brain cells. So are you giving any of your kids those sugar-free popsicles or any of the diet products or diet sodas or sugar-free juices or anything like that, thinking that you might be doing the right thing by them? Bless you. But kids that are developing, their brains are very susceptible to these neurotoxic ingredients. So the very kids that are eating these types of foods and some of the food dyes and all this other stuff are the ones that are given the labels of spectrum disorders, autism, hyperactivity, ADD. They're being told, they're sent home with the reports to the parents that they can't pay attention in school, they can't behave, they're a disruption to the classroom. And then the next thing is they're given a medication, first of all, a lifelong label and a lifelong diagnosis that will follow them. And second of all, a medication.
You can add sugar alcohols to that list.
Yeah, sugar
too.
alcohols
That's
is
the
another
new
one.
trend.
Yeah. That's true. Anything a sugar that ends in OL, maltitol, not xylitol, sorbitol,
Sorbitol. Yeah.
maltitol, sorbitol, those types of things is what we're talking about. Low calorie is a funny one because it's kind of a misnomer. All low calorie foods have to contain as a third fewer calories than the same brand's original product. So if the same brand's original product had too many calories, their low calorie version might still be a high calorie food. Did everybody track with me there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like the little mini sodas they're doing now.
Yeah.
So it's just a smaller version of the higher calorie, but it says low calories.
Right. Exactly.
A healthier choice.
Yeah, but it just only has to have a third lower of the bad calorie choices that the original product had. We talked about low carb. We talked about whole grain. Fortified or enriched. This is a way where they make it try to sound like it's more healthy, that they've added vitamins back to it, like vitamin D milk. Has everybody seen that? Enriched with vitamin D. That's a pretty common one. Another really common one is B vitamins that are like the grains. So as they strip away the actual germ of the grains and you're getting a white flour product, they've taken away all the nutritional value of it. So then they spray it with the synthetic stuff like B vitamins. And now our patients are testing for sensitivities to B vitamins. So we actually have patients who are allergic to B vitamins because they're eating the stuff that sounded like it was healthy, or that they were on your side for. Gluten-free, that sounds healthy, right?
Yeah.
You guys are catching on to me. So the reason why I harp on people about gluten-free is one of those things. If it sounds too good to be true, it's a cookie, it's a chip, it's a snack food, it's a pasta, it's a bread, it's still a carbohydrate. And unfortunately, a lot of the gluten-free stuff is now not a whole grain. It's made out of rice flour or potato starch. And those things break down into sugar way faster, and they spike up your blood sugar, and you have a glycemic attack. So I think somehow people who aren't gluten intolerant now are on the gluten-free bandwagon because the marketing and trendy, and their friend is doing it and their friend felt better. And I'm like for it. Don't get me wrong, like gluten and sugar are really causing issues. I'm not denying any of that. But if you shouldn't be on gluten, then just give it up. Don't try to find the substitute for it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Fruit flavor, that would be good for us, right? That's another tricky one. Sometimes it is, but it should just be made with fruit. This is where I stop and all the food is, and you started buying the stuff up and down the aisles that was in a can or a box that had a label on it in the first place. It's always like, oh my gosh, like fruit doesn't have labels, an egg doesn't need to tell you it's an egg, an apple doesn't need to tell you it's an apple, a chicken doesn't need to tell you it's a chicken. So I kind of like, all of a sudden in the middle of this lecture was like, this is madness, right? But if this is what's around, then we have to know, and we got to deal with it, and we have to be smart about it. Zero trans fats. That would be good, right? You're all like, I don't know how to read a label anymore. You're going to learn, don't worry. Zero trans fat actually means that there's less than 0.5 grams of trans fats per serving. So if the serving sizes are misleadingly small again, the product can actually contain a whole lot of trans fat in it. So it's just a tricky thing. We shouldn't have to be mathematicians. Do you think you should have to read a label to eat a food, or do you think you should have to do math to eat a food? What have you told your children? Well, honey, you got to sit down and figure out the percentage of trans fats for total cholesterol, for total ingredients. And then if the number is within this window, it's okay to eat it. Your kids would be like, I'm going to have a protein shake. You know what I mean? Forget it. Okay, the names of sugar. I want you to read this on your own. I don't want to read it all to you, but this I put there for your convenience again, so you have a checklist, because again, this is one of those tricky things where they don't put sugar and they don't make it obvious, and now people are also kind of aware of high fructose corn syrup and corn syrups and corn solids, so now they're going to call it something else. Even like, this one is fun. This sounds really, I don't even know if I'm saying it right. raspadura sugar. It sounds like almost tropical, right?
Oh, I love that organic cane sugar,
Yeah.
or the
Agave
all natural.
Agave. They found out that agave is like traced with there's a lot of heavy metals in agave.
Wow.
Mhm.
Are any of the sugars okay to have at all?
What
None
about
whatsoever?
stevia?
Stevia, yeah.
That's the one thing that we recommend, but I will say this again, that now that people have been on the stevia bandwagon for too long, we are seeing patients in the exam room that are testing sensitive for stevia. But not all stevia is created equal either. So you're kind of getting the idea that like everything isn't all good or all bad. You've got to consider everything else that you know and make a decision. So a lot of the stevia that's out there, you're going to find stevia in the sugar aisle, right? In the natural, the baking aisle with all the chocolate chips and the cake mixes and the confetti sprinkles and all that terrible stuff.
Now, what about fructose? And that's natural and
That's on there too. Oh, we'll be careful about that. But on the stevia thing, when you get the commercial brand stevias and you turn over and read the actual ingredient list, you're going to see stevia plus dextrose plus other sweeteners. So if you're going to do stevia, it has to just say pure stevia leaf. That's it. You're right, fructose is sugar that's naturally derived from fruit. But if they concentrate it and it's in an not appearing like it would, or not in the concentration that it would in an apple, for say,
just
gonna
eat
have
the
a
fruit.
different
Don't
effect.
squeeze it. You
Yeah,
need the
don't
fiber.
concentrate it. Don't take all the fiber and the skin
Right.
and everything else
Because the
away
fiber
from it.
takes away from
Eat it as it's whole,
Right.
the way that nature intended, the way it grew, and you picked it off the tree. Fruit roll-ups, I love that. Where's the fruit roll-up tree? I said it to my stepson one time in the grocery store, and he was like, I'm like, no, there's no fruit roll-up tree. It's still processed. Here's one even like beyond conception, because somebody brought this to my attention, and I was like, whoa, that's even a lot for me. If you eat the egg white without the egg yolk, you just processed your egg. Now you're really mad, right? You did, because that's not the whole food the way nature intended it, with all the bioavailable ingredients that helped you digest it and absorb it in the first place. Interesting, right? Okay, so you can read all the sugars and take that to the store and look at the labels or look at the stuff on your pantry. The misleading claims we went over, names for sugar. The next label is how to read supplement labels. I really only have to go through a couple for you to get the idea here. So vitamin A. If it says the source is carrots, acetate, palmitate, carrot would be natural, right? We all know that carrots are high in vitamin A. Your mom told you to eat them.
And
They're good
sugar.
for your eyes, all that kind of stuff.
But it's got sugar in it.
It does. And there's I'll tell you, there are certain situations where we have to go super strict. So this totally depends on the patient. So one thing that we pride ourselves in here in this office is that no two people are given the same diet, because everybody's different what nutrition they need and in what concentrations and what their tolerances are. So what you're saying about carrots, for example, if somebody has a problem with yeast overgrowth, or if somebody has cancer, for example, we have to go way strict on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
If somebody's here because they have adrenal fatigue and they're tired and stressed and not sleeping well, I'm not going to focus on the carrots. I'm going after the lattes from Starbucks and the Snickers bars and the ice cream and the pastas and all that other stuff. So that kind of makes sense.
Mhm.
But you're right, it is one of the higher glycemic index veggies.
Well, I mean, kind of like grapes and dates.
Exactly.
And, and when you look at
Exactly.
the ingredient label, that's where I get confused, because
Mhm.
when you go to the store and one of the things I eat says cashew and dates, and you look at the sugar content and it's way up there, and then you see another nutritional bar that says only 6 things of sugar, but then it's got brown syrup and it's got this, and I'm
Right.
going, because
Which
I
do you
don't
pick?
want to have anything that's got syrup or sugar
Right.
or whatever, but I'm still eating dates or grapes or
Right.
whatever, and I'm going, well, in my brain, am I just screwed up because
Right.
I'm thinking I'm not eating sugar, but I am eating sugar, like the carrots and the
Exactly.
tomatoes and all that
Exactly.
kind of stuff.
So remember, like, even the bars are still a processed food, right?
No, it's
No,
just cashew and dates.
Yeah, so if you get the nut bars. So I would say the whole food is better in that case. The whole food is better than all the
And
added
like you said, because
additional
it has three ingredients, that's it.
Yeah.
But then when you look at all the other stuff, it's got lower sugar
Right.
content, but it's got, like you said, all these words you
Right.
don't know, or brown rice this.
Well, the other thing you need to look at is the fiber. So if
Right.
there's enough fiber because it has actual nuts and seeds and they didn't deteriorate the dates or concentrate it or turn it into a syrup, for example, the fiber content is now going to offset the glycemic index of the amount of carbs. So you can't just look at the number of sugars, you got to also compare that to the number of fibers. So for example, if you really want anything, my gauge is like 4 grams of fiber. What do you say? About
Yeah.
3 or 4? And you'll see a lot are like 1 gram, 2 grams, whether it's a bar, whether it's like the Dave's Killer bread or some kind of whole grain or Ezekiel bread. You really should have at least 4 grams of fiber, which is hard to find. Crackers, all that kind of stuff. Because you're right, there are healthier carbs and there are worse carbs. There are healthier choices.
Right.
But the total amount of carbohydrate that each person can have is completely individual and dependent on their health history, their condition, and the whole
Like you
picture.
said, when you're looking at the thing and you go, well, I don't eat rice, or I don't eat, macaroni, and I don't eat this,
Right.
and then, but you're looking at the nutritional
That's all it
label,
is.
looking at it going,
What?
I don't understand what I'm doing.
I gotcha. Well, we're going to practice after, so hopefully this will make a little more sense of it. So then go to vitamin B complex. If, for example, the source says it's nutritional yeast, that's natural. If the source isn't given, or if it says that it's 12,000% of the recommended daily allowance of vitamin B, it's synthetic. So you can continue to read down, but you're going to start to see what are the natural sources, and they'll be proud to disclose to you. Let me tell you, the people that are putting the natural ingredients in their products are not going to withhold that information from you. The ones that you have to be careful and beware of them withholding the information is all the synthetic stuff, because they have to get tricky because you're getting smarter.
Is synthetic automatically bad?
Is synthetic automatically bad?
Or do you, if you can't find the natural, can you?
I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to explain that a little bit further. So synthetic means that it was an isolate or it was made in a laboratory. So it was made by man to mimic what the natural source was. So say again, we go back to vitamin A. So they went and created, they took a part. This is another part of why the RDA is a misleading thing. They took the portion of the whole molecule vitamin A and agreed that a certain amount of it needs to have, you need a certain amount of that carotene, beta carotene, right? But there's alpha carotenes and all these other cofactors that make up the actually naturally occurring A. So now if you take this mega dose of a fat-soluble vitamin, it can over time cause other nutritional deficiencies. So the way I love to explain this is, so you've got all your cells in your body, right? And the cells are covered in receptors. Basically, think of the receptors as parking spaces, okay? So if you took that beta carotene, and it's a big old molecule, and you took a huge amount of it, it went and started parking in all the parking spaces. So that would be like if you came out here tonight and tried to come to my lecture, and there were like 10 Hummers taking up all the parking spots out there, and you couldn't fit your, I don't know, Chevys and smart cars and whatever else in any of the spots, because all the Hummers or the vitamin A molecules were taking up all the spots. So now all the cofactors, the enzymes, the micronutrients, the trace minerals can't get into the cell, and you got a whole mess of a problem down the road. So that's kind of the whole synthetic thing. The other answer to is synthetic always bad is that if it's a chemical, it's chemically derived, the body sees it as a foreign object. Chemicals in the body are seen as a toxin. So now your body's going to war against it. So here you are thinking you're taking a vitamin to do your body some good, and your body has to actually use energy to try to get rid of that. So that kind of answer the
So
question?
you don't get anything from it, do you?
What'd you say?
You don't get anything from it then. If your body's trying to fight it off.
You can get a lot of sensitivities and toxic reactions and some
But
of the stuff
you
that
get no
see.
beneficial effect whatsoever.
People who are, it depends again, like we were saying, no two people are the same. No two people's overall health situation is identical. So do we see people who come in who are on a protocol already that they're getting all these other vitamins and nutrients elsewhere? You guys know I've done it too, because I'm a product junkie. Like, I want to go and test this stuff out, and I want to read about it, and I want to use it and have a personal experience with it. But what happens is that you eventually stop taking it. You know, you have no benchmark of if it's helping you or if it's not helping you. And so human nature is like, you're not going to put your time and money and resources into something that isn't going to work for you. But do we see people who are getting a temporary increase in health factors because they're taking some of this stuff? You bet, because there's really sick, really diseased bodies out there. And even a little bit of nutrition is going to move them along a little bit.
Right.
Is it a long-term solution? Is it the underlying root of what's going on with them? Probably not. But so like a lot of our patients, if they're already on a protocol, I never take them off their protocol before I start them on something that we suggest, because I want to monitor what they're responding to, one factor at a time. So sometimes if they are doing okay, but it's not a long-term situation.
So, I mean, like my doctor had said to me, oh, you need to take calcium and vitamin D. I said, how do you know? I said, I don't understand. You know, I'm out in the sun all the time. How do you know that I need?
Right.
Have you tested me?
Right.
Don't just put me in the group with everybody.
That's right.
You know, and I got kind of nasty with them because they just say, oh, well, you're this age and you need calcium. Well, so if you eat right, do you not ever need vitamins and stuff like that? You still might.
So here's my I'm going to tell you.
You could be taking the synthetic and you've wasted your
Right,
time
you
taking
thought
it
you were
anyway.
doing all this good for all these years long. So the question is, say it again, can you ever eat right and not need any supplementation?
Right, any
Basically.
kind of vitamins.
I'll go to war with anybody all day long to tell you that you cannot, in this day and age, with what we're up against as far as the synthetics, the chemicals, the environmental factors, the stress levels, that you can physically eat enough nutrition to keep your body in optimal health and fight off infection and disease. And anybody, I'll fight that tooth and nail all day long. I can't, but I want to work up here, right? I want to function up here. I want to do this forever. I want to stay late with you. I want to get up early in the morning and network and join you. Like, watch through. We've been together since like 7 a.m. this morning, you know. And I want to bring this to the masses, and I want to be able to push my body really hard, and I don't want to suffer any consequences from that. So, you know, this is a little funny like picture, image, or whatever. Remember the Total cereal commercials where they were like, you need 40 bowls of the leading cereal. Remember, they would stack them all up to equal 1 bowl of Total. Well, that's what we're up against. Like, we're not getting the nutrition, even in the organic produce that we're eating, that we got yesteryear. It's not available because of farming practices and the soil techniques and all this other stuff. So, in order to not need supplementation, my belief is that you would need to sit down and just shove your face all day long with kale and cherries and antioxidants and all this food. And then most people on the planet, if they actually did that, would kill me because they would be having such bad digestive upset because their body can't process the fiber and all the whole foods because their guts are so sick in the first place, right? So that's my response to, do you need supplements all day, I think.
Dr. Christie,
Yes.
your phone is low on
Oh
battery.
yeah, I'll plug it in.
Okay.
Because we're actually going to switch.
Okay.
So I'm done yapping at you for a minute. I'm going to come back. But I want Miss Stephanie to come up. She's going to talk specifically about portion control and the part of the label, that part of the label that might be misleading. So let's swap, and I'll get the phone charging so you don't fade out. Stephanie, go ahead and introduce yourself because they don't know you.
Well, I'm Stephanie Lincoln, and I'm actually, by trade, a licensed mental health counselor. So I kind of got into this arena of health and wellness, actually by my experience in the Army. I was an Army instructor. I was in the Army for 10 years, and I just love teaching people about fitness and how to be a better soldier, or more fit to fight soldier. So I kind of naturally got into that. And going into the mental health business, learning more about, eating disorders and the addiction, especially noticing the addictions to sugars and carbohydrates and how that all kind of work together, and our thinking and, our coping mechanisms with using food to deal with emotions. So that's kind of how I fell into this role. So I own a company called Bellini Mind and Body, and I basically just work with people on their weight loss journey. So we start afresh, we start new, and we go with the basics. I go to grocery stores with all my clients, and you said, oh, it's a bummer. And I was about to say, every single client I've ever been to the grocery store with has cried. Because it is that devastating when you figure out how much you've been tricked and for how long you've been tricked. And it's just when you figure it out and when it all the facts come together and you go, what have I been doing to myself or to my kids? It's devastating. It really is. It's an emotional process. So thank goodness I have a mental health counselor with them in the grocery store to get them through this. So it's a win-win. So I'm so glad I met Dr. Christie a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I mean, I love everything you do. This is what I am all about. So I'm hopeful that medicine is starting to kind of creep baby step a little bit towards, identifying these real issues, and that we need to address from the inside out to be well, holistically. And I'm of course very focused on the mental health kind of aspect of that as well. So I'm a fitness trainer, I do nutrition, I do mental health. I'm like the whole package, but I'm not a chiropractor or or any of that stuff. So you go to her for that, and then you can go to me for the other stuff. So my passion is portion control. So here's why. And if you grabbed my little rack card, you will see why. I have my own before and after picture on my rack card and in my brochure and on my website. So why is that? You can look at that. That is an entire year difference of completely changing my nutrition. I look like a different person. And not that I was really overweight before. I wouldn't have been considered overweight. So at that weight I was at, on that day that picture was taken, that was actually on Thanksgiving in 2015, I changed my diet January. So one entire year. And it's completely changed my body. So we get focused on the scale, right? We sit on the scale like every day. Most of us are scale junkies, especially women. We're like, oh, what weigh today? Oh, I put on 2 pounds. Or the next day it's 4, and the next day I'm down 2. And you're like, what is going on? Nothing's changed, right? But I decided I needed to change. I've always been an athlete. I'm very active, and my body fat was just stuck. It didn't matter what I did. But you know what I did was portion control. I was eating right things, but I was eating an obscene amount, the American amount, of those foods. So I'll say American over and over again, because that is what our brains have been tricked into since we were little kids. So how many of you, raise your hands, had to sit at the dinner table and eat every little scrap off your plate? Yes. That's the American mindset, right? You can't waste it. We had to sit there and eat every little.
They're starving kids in India. Right?
Exactly. They're starving kids in China. You better eat the rest of that, macaroni and cheese.
Pack it up and send it
Right? So we have that mindset drilled into us day by day, when we're kids. And it follows us into adulthood. Well, what happens when we go to, let's say, one of my favorites is Longhorn. And you order your favorite dishes. How big is that portion size when it comes to first of all, they give you a big loaf of bread, right? It doesn't matter how many people are sitting there.
Yeah.
If I sit there by myself, they bring me an entire loaf of bread. It's like, here you go, here's a whole thing of butter and a whole thing of bread.
I mean, we've got room for the rest of them.
Woo! I'm like, yeah, I could eat that whole thing. I have been known to do that. And then they bring you a big salad, and then they bring you this, and then they bring you an entree, and then, do you want dessert? Yeah, let's do dessert. And then we get a huge thing of cake. And that's our meal. And we just consumed enough calories for probably a week in one sitting. So that's the American portion mindset. You know, we're all about the supersize, right? Do you want to supersize it? We're all about getting more for our money. That's the American way. Well, we got to scale it back because we have seen what the results are of that. I don't know if you know what the overweight and obesity rates in the United States are. It's basically 30-30-30. We're all split in half. So 30% are obese, 30% are overweight, 30%-ish are at normal weight or undersized. So majority of Americans are overweight. That's the fact. And it's climbing. It's not getting any better. So we have to work on portion control. I got you those little colorful handouts. I like to use colorful pictures and handouts. So I always tell my clients, athletes are made in the kitchen. I'm a fitness instructor. You can do whatever you want. You can run marathons. You can just walk your dog every day. It doesn't matter what you do as far as activity level. Just do something. But if you're not doing something in the kitchen, no matter how much you work out, and I'm a testament to this. I used to work out like 3-4 hours a day when I was an endurance athlete. It didn't matter. My body fat was still high because I was eating crap, and a lot of it. Because I thought I could. Because I worked out 4 hours a day. Right? You see that vicious cycle that we get into? Well, I deserve it. You know, I worked out, 2 hours a day. I spent an hour on the treadmill. I can eat this, humongous portion. That's way obscene than what we should be eating, even for the week. All right, so portion distortion. Obviously, this shows you over time how big our American diets have gotten. So the hamburger used to get, 20 years ago at the same fast food joint is huge now. And then they have that, well, you can triple size it and quadruple size it. So you have like 4 patties of hamburgers stacked on top of each other. And, that's your meal. So it's just a little graphic showing you. I used to work at Starbucks when I was in graduate school. And those humongous, 24-ounce venti frappuccinos that has like 4,000 calories in it. I was like, oh my gosh, that's a, and I was a starving college student, so I was like, oh, I can drink one of those. That's my whole day of calories. So portions and servings. So we're talking about reading labels, and a part of that label is what is a portion and what is a serving. So I gave you a little graphic of the nutrition label. So it says nutrition facts. So let's take a look at it. So it says a serving size. 1 cup. All right. So you get the serving size. I'll use the illustration of a cookie. So our serving size is 1 cup. Well, how do we know what that is? Do you guys carry around cups in your purses or in your cars or tablespoons or anything like that? No? No, neither do I. So you have to try and figure it out, right? As a consumer, you're not really looking at, well, how much is a cup, or how much is 1 serving. I'll just eat the whole cookie, right? So a cookie is a cookie, and I wanted a cookie, so I got a cookie, and I'm going to eat a cookie. So if the label says 250 calories, and then we're going back to the math now. Mm-hmm. The label, so now you're expected to do math as a consumer and figure it out for yourself. So let's say the label has that you just bought from the store. This is a label. It's 250 calories, and the serving size is 1 cup. How many calories would you be consuming if you ate the entire thing?
500.
Yeah, 500. That's a considerable. That's considerably higher than 250, right? That should change your mind about maybe what you're eating, but most people don't, right? So we're trying to help you guys be smart consumers and turn that label over and go, ooh, if I eat this whole thing, I need to times this by 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or even more, right? So what is a portion size and what's right for me? How do you know how many servings or how many portions should I have? What's healthy for me? I get that question all the time from clients. But I always say it depends on a few factors. So Dr. Christie always says everybody's different, right? So my activity level may be different, and my age is different from Dr. Christie's and everybody in this room. So a nutrition label is just a guideline. It's not something that you can say this person, everybody gets the same, and it's going to work the same for your body as it is for me. But there's no way to figure that out by looking at that label, right? So a few factors I just want you to consider. Your recommended daily calorie intake. So we'll go over that. Whether or not you need to lose weight or stay at the same weight, or you need a calorie deficit. So maybe you're looking to lose weight. Well, maybe the next person next to you isn't, but they're eating the same thing. So we should be considering this a little bit differently when it comes to portion size, right? Because maybe I don't want to lose weight. Maybe I want to stay exactly where I'm at, right? So you have to think about those things. Level of activity per day and how many calories you need to maintain, gain, or lose your weight. So if you have like a very active job, you're in construction and you're, lifting things and you're burning a ton more calories than somebody who's sitting behind a desk, doing this all day, right? So my needs, caloric needs, are going to be different from yours. So that's my caveat for that, is to get with your healthcare provider and figure out what your specific level is at as far as your daily recommended calories. Because I can't say everybody in here needs X amount of calories. The end. Drop the mic, we're done. No, that's not true. There's a lot of very specific things that go into that. So I'm not going to be able to cover that here because I don't know all your factors individually. But what I can give you is general guidelines. So my general guidelines is this beautiful, colorful graphic here with all the pictures of the playing cards. So what is a portion size? So if you're out and about and you don't carry around cup sizes and measuring cups and teaspoons and stuff with you, like most people don't, this is a good rule of thumb. So trying to kind of remember certain household objects that you know the size of and compare it to that. Okay, so everybody's heard of the playing card, right? So a portion size is about the size of a playing card for your protein. So when I go to Longhorn and I get the salmon, which I love their salmon, I cut it in half because it's a huge thing of salmon. And it's obscene, of course. So I go ahead and cut it in half. There's my serving size for my protein. And what about, a carbohydrate? So maybe I'm getting a side of rice with that. Then it's going to be a cup. So that's about the size of a tennis ball. So hopefully everybody knows the size of it. I wasn't a tennis player, but I've seen a tennis ball. I have dogs, so I know what the size of a tennis ball is. So it's about, about the size of your fist, maybe, depends on how big your fist is. I have tiny little hands, so this is about a cup. But if you have huge hands, it's going to be a little bit bigger. Cheese. I love this one because everybody gets really disappointed. So the size of a domino is your portion for cheese. Oh, that's a pretty bummer grilled cheese sandwich right there. With that much amount of cheese, but that is a portion size of cheese. So yeah, we go overboard as Americans with the cheese. Piece of fruit, so about the size of a baseball. A smaller size like apple would be a portion size. So like Dr. Christie said, some of these, these commercial fruits are like 3 or 4 times the size they really should be. And it's not one, when you eat the apple, it's not really one serving of fruit. It's going to be, more than that if you're eating the commercial sized ones. The butter, so about the size of a die. So we usually see tablespoons of butter and things. Really should be a teaspoon. Sorry, I know that's much smaller, but that's what it is. So baked potatoes like starches. So just think of a computer mouse. And we already went over the fist. And dressing, salads, nut butters. So that would be about 2 tablespoons. So about the size of a golf ball is really how big you should go. And then sweets would be 1 ounce or the size of your dental floss container. Which
Are
is
all
much
these
smaller.
just 1 servings?
Yes, this would be one serving of that specific food group.
Right.
hmm So I have below that these handy dandy little portion control containers, and you can get these on Amazon or message
that
me.
would be
You have my
on,
contact information. This makes it so much easier. I have like 3 sets of these at home, and I use them every day for everything that I eat at home. So it gives me a visual. You know, it's already portioned out. So when I make my salads, what's green for? What does it look like? A veggie, right? So I use these. So I just grab my container, scoop it out, throw it on my plate. It's done. I don't have to think about it. I know this is my size. So again, it's kind of like retraining your brain. So I'm American. I'm used to the obscene portion sizes. So it's retraining my brain. When I have a veggie, it should be about this size for a portion.
And when you do that, I mean, instead of eating lettuce or whatever, that's a bowl of lettuce, I mean, or broccoli or cauliflower or whatever, if you're eating massive amounts of it, is that not training your brain for portion size? Because it's still good for you, you know?
It is.
I mean,
But as you notice, the calorie content of normal calorie content of the specific food group, so it's the portion size is going to be bigger, right? So these are the bigger containers because these are the lower calorie food groups, right? And as we go higher in the
Right.
calories, we're going down
I
in
guess
the portion
when
size.
I went to Weight Watchers years ago, and I went for 10 years, and you could eat as much vegetables as you wanted. And so my mindset is, I mean, and I don't say peas or, you know, I'm talking lettuce and tomatoes and broccoli and cauliflower and, you know, mushrooms or whatever. I mean, nothing that's of value. You could eat freaking all day long if you wanted to eat it. And I just got in that mentality of always eating volumes. I'm talking
Right.
volumes of eating that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And I mean, it's never, I mean, I lost, you know, I was down much thinner than I am now, but I was younger. But, you know, and it never seemed to make a difference. Yes, you always had to do your portion control of your protein and all that stuff. But it was like, it didn't matter about your vegetables.
Right.
So I've just always, I mean, I used to eat 5 bags of vegetables in a
Right.
day, you know.
Well, okay. So I'll give you my professional opinion about that. So I'm jumping into my mental health hat here.
Sure.
So I'm about behavior modification, and that's why I love portion control and doing it this way to measure it out and to retrain and trick your brain back into what it should have thought the portion control size was from when you were a child.
Okay.
So I'm going back to, what are you training your brain to think when you're eating this massive amount, overly portioned size of food? Doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
You're kind of contraindicating what you're doing with the other food groups.
Right. I
And
just
it's
know
about
that you have
balance.
to, you have to limit that, but I can eat as much
Right,
of this
right.
as I want.
So,
you know,
and
like-
yeah, so I think it kind of sets you up for unhealthy behaviors, and you're conditioning yourself to relate. You know, you're not addressing the behavioral issue when it comes to, you know, I won't go further into that. That's a whole nother
Right, 'cause
lecture.
people
But
go, well, you don't eat. I go, I eat all the time. What
Right,
are you talking about? Hey.
oh, and I tell people, you know, they're like, oh, you must be naturally thin. No, I'm not. And I eat all day.
Yeah.
But it's about balance. And I think that's what Dr. Christie probably would agree, is that, you know, our bodies need balance. So, yeah, our ancestors did have lean times where, you know, there were probably more vegetables available than animal products, but then vice versa. So our bodies will naturally adapt, and they're meant to. But I guess as far as trying to maintain homeostasis, you want to have a balance. So, you know, you want to have a balance of those food groups, you know, the 40% kind of carbohydrates, fibers, sugars, the 30%, you know, fats, and the 30% fat. So getting a balance would be better than the 90% this and not enough of that. So I would just be afraid that you would leave out other very essential things
Oh, yeah.
for your body, you know, just like we talked about that fat-free kind of era. And I know somebody personally who had some very severe medical issues because she was on that for so long, decades. And
Right.
now we're finding out that was very detrimental to their health. So it's about balance. And so that's why I love, this kind of visual here is balancing it out. So nothing is bad. It's just about moderation and portion control. So, with the carbohydrates, so yeah, I do. I had
Is
a
that for
piece
the
of
whole day
Ezekiel
or
bread.
just per meal?
So this week, this is the way I do it, is I have so many a day based on my caloric need, my personal caloric need for the day. So, I have 4 to 5 portions of veggies. I have 2 to 3 portions of fruit. I have 4 to 5 portions of protein. And,
And you can't eat
3
them all at one
portions. You can, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. It's
Oh, you
however you
stop.
want to spread it out. So it's about, so there's 2 different things that come into portion control. It's your daily caloric need and balancing out the food groups where you're getting more of the most nutrient rich, dense, and then less of the less nutrient dense rich.
Right.
So not leaving any, I'm not saying you can never have a piece of cake for the rest of your life after you walk out this door. The end. It's about
Everybody's looking at me.
balance. So, yes, if you want to, do that. I'm like, amen. Sister, if you can do it, do it. But when I'm at my niece's birthday party, I'd like to have, a cupcake with her. Now, am I going to have an entire cupcake? No, because I'm keeping in mind when I'm having my carbohydrate to keep it to that portion size. So I just go and I cut it in half or whatever and make sure it's the right portion size. So it's all about balance. Nothing is horrible if you do it
Yeah, I think
once, unless it's heroin. We're talking about food here. So
I just think if you cut out your sugar, you don't ever even think about it anymore. I just never think about sweets.
and that,
It's
yeah,
just-
and we could
I
talk
don't
about
blame it.
sugar. I
Right,
mean,
that's what
all
I'm saying.
day. It changes your taste buds. I mean,
Yeah. I
we could
just
do an
wouldn't even
entire
think to have
lecture
it.
about
Right.
what sugar does to you. And so when you cut it down to the appropriate portion size or less in a day, you're going to find that you're going to crave more of these.
Right.
And that these are going to taste better, and you're not going to
But
need
then the
that
natural,
anymore.
like you're saying, well, I ate grapes. Oh shit, I didn't think about it. Or I
Yeah.
had some blueberries or whatever.
Right.
I don't think of that as sugar because I don't think it like a cake
Right.
or I would never even think about that. But I'm having the other stuff that is sugar.
Right,
You know.
right. But again, it's about balance. It's a whole food. It grew on a tree. I mean, it really couldn't be as bad as,
Right.
processed,
A muffin, right? Or
grape
whatever.
juice,
Right.
So, yeah, it's about kind of, I always just tell clients, what is the healthiest choice for you? Think about if you're going to choose between the two, what do you think is going to have the best reaction in your body? Now, it couldn't be the healthiest choice in the world, maybe, because you may not have that option in front of you. But
Right.
it's the healthiest choice for you at the time.
And that's why they said it's better to eat it than to drink it. To put
Right.
everything in and then
Right.
Yeah.
So thinking about all this,
Wow.
so I know we covered a ton of stuff, in this lecture, and it's a little overwhelming, but I think as far as the balance is concerned, and on the back, I gave you the recommended.
Yes.
So these are the I'm telling you, this is what the government says. This is not what Stephanie says.
And we believe our government.
You do. So I wanted
They never
to
lie to us.
include this just because this is the government, recommended daily allowance for each food groups for what you would need every day as far as servings are concerned. So I put a little caveat at the bottom. This is a general guideline, and by no means does it mean it fits everybody in this room or anybody in this room for that matter. So I would encourage you to consult a professional like Dr. Christie or myself or your doctor and figure out what is actually your list of recommended daily servings of each food group, because it can be different. Yes, sir.
What is is there like a formula for, like, say, protein based on your weight, or how much you should eat per day, something like that?
Yeah, so the calculation, well, other than all the medical, background and everything that you have to be concerned about, so the calculation would take like your baseline metabolic calories plus you know, what you need for your activity for that day based on your activity level, plus or minus what your needs are for, do you want to maintain your weight? Do you want to gain weight? Do you want to lose weight? So there's an actual like mathematic calculation that you would do with it. So I always do that with all my clients. We do that mathematical calculation, taking in to concern all of those other things. So yes, there is a calculation you can do to figure out that number. But as far as like percentage, as far as proteins in your day, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
The recommendation is 40%.
Based
But
on your
again,
weight. Based on your weight, right?
no, just in general.
Oh,
Just
40
in a day.
grams per protein per day.
So 40% of your diet for
Oh.
that day should be protein.
I see.
So, but again, there's so many other factors involved. You know, we have somebody who's doing a plant-based.
Always.
So, or you could be vegan, or you know, or you have specific medical needs that require limitations. So, again, it goes back to.
You can get your protein from plants, or is it
Yeah, absolutely. And there's lots of plant sources for
Where do you
protein.
think a gorilla gets his from?
Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to cover portion control because it's something that changed my life. I was eating the right things, but I was doing it in the wrong portions, and I was not balancing. So I was like any other fitness instructor and living off of protein and caffeine all day. And I thought, okay, well, I get through the day, I can do what I need to do, and that works for me. I'm not overweight, but you can see in that picture, I was not healthy, and I didn't look healthy. So it's changed my life, and that's why I'm so passionate about portion control, because I think if you create a balance, and what I did in my diet was to create a balance, so not, you know, saying I can't ever have something in my whole life, but creating a balance where I'm getting more of the nutrient-dense things and then less of the less nutrient-dense things. It'll balance itself out. Your body is designed to balance it out. So you should have that share and not just do what I did and live on protein and expect to be healthy.
Exactly.
Don't you
So
have the
that's
carbs to work out like
You
did?
do, and I didn't realize
You
that.
weren't doing it?
Well, you know, look at the Atkins. I mean, again, talking about trends.
Atkins, that works, but
Swinging.
it works by ketosis.
Yes.
And the bad thing about that, they did the studies why it works. The mortality rate of those people.
And the cholesterol,
The
and
cholesterol and
you know, all
everything
the
else.
other things that it creates.
Well,
The constipation because you're not getting enough fiber.
If it sounds too good to be true.
Yes.
it's good for rapid weight loss if you gotta go in at night and they gotta do it.
Most men
But to
agree.
do it as a lifestyle,
No.
it's
Right.
not.
So we're all about balance. So hopefully
That's right.
that gave you something to think about. So hang on to these little graphics so you can remember what your portion size is. So the next time you go out to eat, you can keep that in mind. Or you can get these handy dandy containers for your home for the food you make at home. It's really helped me a lot. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to do the reason I stood up because I don't want to lose the train of thought. What she left off on was a really good point, and so I want to just give you a demonstration on this because I'm hearing the questions that are coming in and some of the maybe like previous misconceptions you had, and trying to fit the new information that we're sharing with you tonight in with what you've adopted as your norm or as truth or gospel. So I want to share with you that there is a way in this office that we are able to come up with your customized individual protocol. So the good news is that we don't have to guess. So all night you've heard both from me and from Stephanie that the best way to figure this out is always an individualized approach. And so there is no one easy, simple equation or mathematical formula. So the technique that I do in the office is called nutrition response testing. And I want to demonstrate that to you guys because I want you to, if you're new to the office, I want you to get an opportunity to have a health screening tonight to start to dive into what your specific needs are. Because what I found over the course of 14 years is that this eliminates all the guesswork for us. So I don't have to guess how many calories you need, how much carbohydrate, how much protein. Are you vitamin D deficient? Do you need vitamin B? Do you need liver support, adrenal support, thyroid support, gastrointestinal support, cardiovascular support? So I don't, a patient comes in with this overall picture of all these different symptoms. And what I love about the technique that we use is that I don't have to guess, right? So if somebody comes in with all these different things that are wrong with them, their whole health history that, they're comprised of, I don't have to just go in and start doing a pill for a problem, right? So even though my pills are whole food nutrition and they're a heck of a lot more natural than some of the things that we're talking about, I still don't have to give a pill for a problem. And before I knew about the technique nutrition response testing, I still had to do that. So with all my knowledge about functional medicine and holistic model of care and all that, I still had to just listen to you and then do what I thought was the next best thing. And so we don't have to do that anymore. So I'm going to demonstrate it. Have you been muscle tested before, Stephanie?
No.
Do you want to play along?
Sure.
Okay, come on up here. She's going to be my model. You can go.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So in nutrition response testing, if Stephanie's standing here, she's not under a whole lot of stress. You guys were nice to her. You asked good questions. You were good listeners and everything. So if I were to just push on her arm, if I were to push down, she can push up into my hand and match my pressure easy enough. That's not difficult, right? And she's a fitness trainer, so she's got muscles. We all know that, right? So she's got no problem doing that. Now, 5 major things. One would be immune challenges. So things like bacteria, viruses, yeast overgrowth, parasites, those
And
kind of
do the people
things.
know that they have a problem, or they don't?
Well, they're coming to me, so they're needing help with something. Something's gone wrong where they're now seeking advice. But no, not necessarily. Like, she might come in, and it sounds like a complete thyroid case, right? She's like, I can't lose weight, I'm not sleeping, I've lost the outside of my eyebrows, my hair is thinning, my skin is dry, and I'd be like, that sounds like thyroid all day long. But then I go and do this exam on her, and the body's like, oh, it's not thyroid, it's adrenal. And so that would mean I need to work on her adrenals in order to get her thyroid better. So the whole point of this is that the body heals in a priority fashion, and the body knows best. So I don't have to go into my rational brain to come up with all these things that she told me are going on, and what's the first step, what's the next step, how long is she going to be working on this thing. The body can reveal all that, which I think is incredible. So we talked about immune issues. The next thing that we would test for would be food sensitivities. So again, we said everything is balanced and customized and individualized to the person. So everybody's needs for all these different amounts of nutrients is going to be different dependent on their whole life's history and their medical conditions and all of that kind of stuff. So there are certain foods where people could be sensitive to them or have full-blown allergies, or they could just be inflammatory to the body and interfere with the body's natural healing process. So we can test for all that with the muscle testing. And then the next 2 are environmental interferences. So chemicals, whether it's chemicals in our environment, it's pesticides, it's stuff that we're putting on our skin and our hair, thinking again we're doing our body good, and not realizing that it's all laden with chemicals. Heavy metals. So heavy metals are being sprayed on us, and they're coming in through vaccines and through dental care and just in a lot of the food and products and water sources that we have. So it's just in our world. Like, you don't have to necessarily be doing anything wrong to come into exposure to all these things and for them to start to accumulate and cause disruption in your body's natural function. So we'd find that what's wrong with the lung, and then we would start to build a whole food protocol for her. So number 1, it was always best to get your nutrition through food first, but there are situations where people need concentrated nutrition. And so that's what supplements are. The word supplement means to supplement an already healthy diet and lifestyle. It doesn't mean eat your crap diet and then rely on these pills and think that you can get away with murder and this is going to solve all your problems, right? But like I said, I'll go to war all day long saying you can't eat enough nutrition with these stressed out bodies that we're walking around in nowadays, right? So the next part of the muscle test would be to find out what's the proper nutrition for that lung. So we're going to that works is because, remember I said that's whole food nutrition? So not all supplements are created equal. So whole food living nutrition has energy in it. So these are in little glass bottles. So that's similar to the sun's rays coming through the window, right? Except the sun's like a bazillion times stronger than the energy coming out of this food. So it's kind of easier for us to witness and conceptualize like the heat and the energy and to see the rays and feel it on our sun, feel it on our skin. Even though we can't see and witness the energy from coming out of this bottle, your body's energy is sensitive enough to be able to sense it and to know whether this benefits your body or doesn't benefit it by holding it or placing it on the body. Mm-hmm. So then based on all of that information that we get, we come up with a design clinical nutrition program. So that might be supplements, it might be nutrition, it might be cutting out certain food sensitivities, it might be different proportions of all these different serving sizes or food groups. Just depends on that person's individual needs. But there's no one size fits all here, right? So we're not all leaving with the same nutrition protocol, the same amount of carbs or proteins or veggies or whatever. It takes the whole picture. So I kind of say like it's like bridesmaids dresses, or for men like if you were the groomsmen and we'd all go get fitted for our dresses or our tuxes. And we might look similar when we got done because we're wearing the same outfits, but the neck is different, the inseams are different, the waist is different, it's customized to our body. And that's the way we do nutrition around here, because there is no one size fits all, magic pill,
Right.
magic cure all.
But at the doctors, that's what they want to do. They just
But it's fast and
everybody.
easy to do that. If you just put everybody in a box and a label and give them the same mundane, it's easy.
They
What I
treat
do isn't
symptoms,
easy. What Stephanie does isn't easy. It takes us time. We take time with our patients.
They're not getting to the root cause. All they're doing
Right.
is treating symptoms. They don't want you to get well.
Hey, that's our next slide. See, here's
They
the
don't- They don't want you to
That's
get
the
well
next
because there's no
slide.
money in getting well.
He's a fortune teller. So you're absolutely right. The whole point is to get to what's the underlying root of illness and address the overall health and well-being of the body. And so my company is called Health by Design. I believe that you have everything within you to be healthy and to heal. But if there's something like an interference like that food sensitivity or a metal or a chemical interfering with it, you could eat all the food in the world and still have issues. So that's kind of a new subcategory of patients that I've come across moving to Florida, is that you guys have people that are willing to put the time and the money and the energy and the effort into eating right, and you think you're doing the right things, and seemingly it would look like that's so, even if you diet journaled, but you're not getting the results that you would expect for the amount of time and effort and money that you're putting into it. And so when we couple the good diet with removing some of these interferences and coming up with that customized protocol, people's progress kind of goes on an upward trend too. And then the last thing that I just always say is that it's safe and natural. So when we're talking about food or whole food supplements, it doesn't matter if it's a baby or a pregnant mom or somebody who's older or somebody who's on medications. If unless your doctor is telling you that you can't eat certain foods, then this is safe and we can use it. So I love that. And then there are certain contraindications. Mostly it's herbs and medication contraindications, and that's up to your practitioner to know and understand that, and for you to have the trust that they know what they're doing. So that's my job, to know those few couple contraindications that I can and can't work with, or what to avoid and whatnot. But it's so slim. It's not the picture that they're painting as far as this being dangerous. It's really not dangerous.
Well, right, because they don't believe in acupuncturists or chiropractors or whatever, and so they weren't taught nutrition.
Yeah, and we can talk a lot. I mean, that could probably be another entire whole lecture on the difference in mindsets. But what I find is, regardless of who I talk to, when I explain it this way with those few simple terms, it kind of resonates with our audiences. Is like, you should be able to heal. Like, just procedures, invasive operations, medication, surgeries, it's not the only way. Those things didn't exist for a long time, and people were healthy and doing better and didn't have cancers and diseases and food sensitivities and spectrum disorders like we're seeing running rampant nowadays. So what were they doing back then when they had healthier statistics than we do now, when we're spending more on our healthcare and on chemistry than any other country in the world? You know what I mean?
Well, but most people want just a fast fix.
Quick fix.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a
Just
fast,
give me
quick,
a pill
take a
and-
pill, quick
Right,
fix
that's
society.
exactly
We
right.
want
That's-
results.
that's right.
Well, and we realize that people won't put their money into something that they're not getting results. So I just tell people, you don't need to understand what this muscle test means or how I do it or how it works. But give me a small amount of time, and the proof is in the pudding, and it works time and time again. Because that's how it resonates with the way the body was put together and the way the body wants to heal anyway. So I'm going to give you guys a chance to practice. I know we're going a little bit over, but that's a lot of good information, and we didn't want to shortchange anybody. Go in your packets real quick. We're going to cut off because you guys can't see the labels.